Hey everyone, I'm Superphiz and I'm here with Remy Roy.
Hi there.
And we want to talk about how to get started on the Kintsugi testnet. And I'm actually really excited today because Remy and I have kind of been in the same circle for a really long time, but I think this is the first time, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time we've ever hung out together, right?
I believe that's correct, yeah.
Awesome. So I know so many great things about Remy and I've seen so many of his contributions. And when I posted about the Kintsugi testnet on our EthStaker today, he said, hey, I've actually written instructions for getting on that. And now I want to be clear, Marius and Paratosh have also written guides to getting on, but theirs are generally more targeted at people who already know what they're doing. And so I know that a lot of our homestaker people, maybe like you seek overwhelming instructions. And what I like to do is do it from scratch, do it from the beginning so that you don't feel overwhelmed by instructions that don't seem to make sense. So what I have here is a clean machine. It's actually an Intel NUC that I just wiped. What was I using it for? I don't know. I had something on it. I hope it wasn't important. So I wiped the NUC. I reinstalled Ubuntu 20.04.3, the server version. It's the most recent long-term support version of Ubuntu server. You can also install the desktop. Really, we're just testing. So just install any version of Ubuntu. Hi, Colfax. How are you?
Good. How are you, man?
Good, good. We just kind of hopped into this. Welcome. And I think, do you see my screen share now? I have Remy's GitHub pulled up and a blank CLI.
I do indeed. It looks beautiful.
Awesome. So I think the first thing we need to chat about before we get too much into this is, what is Kintsugi? Who wants to tackle that one?
That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I can tell you I believe it's the first major testnet for the merge, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's my understanding. So, the merge is anticipated. I'm calling it June of 2022. I don't really know when it's going to happen, but I think that's a fair guess. And so before we get there, there needs to be a lot of testing for the consensus layer clients and the execution layer clients to work together. That is the merge. And so Kintsugi is the first public version of that merge testnet. It means that it's already been through some developer testing and they feel like, hey, this kind of works pretty well. Let's see if people can break it. And so now what they want are us, the people who really don't know everything, to pile on and see what we can do with it. We may not be doing anything complex, but just adding nodes to the network gives data and metrics that make it more testable.
You mean what we can break?
That's the idea. I'm so proud. My friend Daniel Bendorf and I broke the Olympic testnet. We didn't break it. We flooded it with transactions back in like 2014, and we were so proud of ourselves. We had no idea what we were doing. Still don't have any idea what we did, but we were really proud.
That's funny. Yeah, I remember I think I was watching one of the core dev calls and they were talking about the importance of testing in these testnets. And the idea that they were saying is like, it's better to find issues now in these testnets, obviously, as opposed to like on the main net. And so I joke about breaking it, but like, I think that's one of the things, like the more people we get involved in these testnets, the more people are doing different things with different backgrounds and trying to figure out the sort of the kinks and sort of the edge cases that we want to be able to fix before we actually do the merge.
Yep. Yeah, and this could get really confusing too. Like right now we're doing Kintsugi, we might be doing Kintsugi for 3 months, or something could break today. The network grinds to a halt and they have to redevelop a new testnet, get a new name for it, and launch again. So I think there's a fair chance, based on the maturity of the tools we're working with, that this will last at least a few weeks, but it will be interesting to see.
We've had a few testnet already in the last few weeks. I believe the guys have been working on at least 4 or 3 testnets already. So they've been running this for a while, and I believe it's quite robust now.
And I'm not sure we dove into this really quickly without introducing ourselves. So we should do that really quickly. My name is Superphiz. I am an organizer for the EthStaker community. You can find us at reddit.com/r/EthStaker or in our Discord. And we also have a lot of YouTube content, of which this will be some of. I am joined by Remy Roy. Remy, why don't you introduce yourself? Because I don't think I could do you justice.
All right, so I do support on EthStaker, but I'm also part of the Stakehouse group or community where we build tools for the staking community. So all the tools to make it easier for people to run their own validator or to do stakings on Ethereum. We try to build those kind of tools and help people make it easier for them to get going with that.
Amazing. I'm Colfax, also a member of the EthStaker community and also a member of the Stakehouse community. So I do a lot of that work with Remy on the tool building around different things around automating validator setups and all sorts of other tooling, and sort of engaging the community on what we can build to make things easier for staking.
Cool. And that's one of the things I love to hear Colfax say is our goal is to lower the bar for staking. And really, if you have the ability to get involved with this testnet, I hope it increases your confidence that you can be a home staker. We will decentralize the Ethereum beacon chain by giving as many people as we can the opportunity to validate from home. And that is really kind of one of the missions of EthStaker, to decentralize the network by encouraging people to stake from home. So, and I think we're ready to get started.
Let's go.
Drive me through it and I will scroll down.
All right, so we've got a bunch of introduction paragraph. I'm not sure you want to read all of this, but if we want to get starting, you could go to the installing the prerequisites sections there.
Okay. And as I said earlier, I did, this is a fresh install, but I did run updates because those updates can end up taking, 20 or 30 minutes. So I've actually run these first two commands. I'm running them now just for, can't type in, probably gonna paste the stuff.
For completeness.
Yeah.
All right.
And so we need a couple dependencies. Oh, Remy, I love these.
The copy thing on GitHub is great, but it'll copy the $, so you'll have to remove it.
And a trick. So one of the reasons I like doing this live is because I can give you the tricks. If you paste that and then type Control-A, it will take your cursor back to the very beginning of that line, and then you can hit delete a couple times. While we're doing tricks, I did delete the $. If you leave a space in here, that means that this command will be kind of a secret. If you delete the space, it means you'll be able to find that command again later. Just a little tip.
I didn't know that one. So good. That's a good tip for me as well.
So it's the hist file or the history file.
Yeah.
If there's a space ahead, it will be ignored from the history file, which I've always thought. Sometimes it helps and sometimes it's annoying.
I actually didn't even know that.
So these prerequisites we're installing: Git, build essential, CMake, wget, curl, and this one I do not recognize. CCZE. Oh, is that the simple? Is that the serial? What is CCZE?
It's a simple tool to colorize your logs. So,
oh, okay. It's just a log colorizer. Yeah. Okay, great. Perfect. So those went in pretty quickly. The other things, they're really basic. They're fundamental Linux tools to build software. So they're very common if you are compiling things.
Yep. And so the next steps would be to install a recent version of Go. And there's a few commands there that you can run to get it.
So this is webget go.dev. We're downloading Go version 1.17.4. Now we're going to remove any existing versions of Go. We want to make sure that there's nothing there that we install over. Okay, those are giving me a little bit of a fit. All right.
You have the $sign there.
So I talked about history before. If you type the up arrow, it will take you back to the previous line, and then you can do Control-A to delete that. And I also want to show, if I delete just one of these, this will not be in history. but because it's a previous command, if I type up, it will show up. And that was all confusing. Sorry. And so now we need to update the path. We're going to export the path. The path is the directory that Linux looks for things to be. And so I can, we're actually going to, let's run this command right here real quick, just to see what it looks like. Whenever you, because it's a not relative, let me do this real quick.
Like if you want to see the full path, you can just type echo $ path, right?
And I just wanted to like show the original path goes up to here. So anytime you run any, if I type a command from the prompt, it will look at these folders for it. And we just added a new one that is user local go bin. And now it will look for binaries in that path. And so now I'm going to remove the installer that I just downloaded.
Yeah, that's just for removing the leftovers.
Good hygiene. And so essentially that installed Go, and I should be able to do, and
I believe it's there's no dash, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm running, I've installed Go, it's in the path, everything is great. And now we're going to install Rust. So this is what we call the Rust one-liner. You can get it from their website. I absolutely love it because it makes installing Rust so easy. Type 1 and enter to do default installation.
And that should install the latest version of Rust, which should work with what we'll need to build later on with the Lighthouse.
Cool. And so if I type which Rust now, I think it's not going to find it. Yep. And that's because you have to source the home and the environment so that it can find it correctly.
That's correct.
And now if I do which Rust,
I believe it's Rust C.
Ah, there we go.
There you go.
Great. And I always like to, just for my own satisfaction as I'm learning something, it's probably going to be no, yeah. I like to just check the version. It just helps me to be familiar with kind of where I'm at. All right. What's next?
All right. Next, we'll build a special version of Get, a version that will actually enable us to run the Merge testnet here.
Exciting. So all of this software is open source. It's stored in GitHub. And I'm just using the Git tool to clone that repository. I'm choosing a specific branch that is Merge Kintsugi because Marius probably has a whole bunch of branches and we just want to make sure we get the right one.
Yep.
And so we're going to cd into that directory and we're going to make.
And that might take a little while. Last time I tried on my own dedicated machine, it wasn't too long to build this special version of Get, but like depending on your machine, it can take a little while.
We should maybe talk a little bit about this architecture of the merge because a lot of people probably don't realize that when the merge happens, there's not going to just be one piece of software. You're actually going to be using several different pieces of software to have this right environment.
Yep. That is correct. You will need an execution client, which in this case is going to be Geth, and you will need a consensus client, which we're going to use for this example, Lighthouse.
Great.
So you just install Geth globally, and so we'll be able to use it later on in the instructions.
And I hear you using the new and correct terminology. We now call what we used to call ETH1 clients. We now refer to those as execution clients. And the ETH2 clients are called consensus layer clients. And those two work together to make the chain. All right, so we have Geth. Let's do this real quick. We're running Geth 1.10.14 unstable. That is, again, not the one you would get from the repo. It is one that we built specially for this purpose.
That's correct, yep.
CD tilde just means take me home. We're already there, but it's good hygiene.
So this next steps, we'll be building a special version of Lighthouse. We'll be building the unstable branch from the official repository. And that version will enable us to run on this merge testnet.
Great. And yeah, this should just take a minute. Colfax, how are you, my friend?
Feeling okay. I had my booster shot yesterday, so I'm a little loopy.
Yeah, I told myself I was going to feel fine, but I felt junky for probably 2 or 3 days. Well worth it, though.
We'll see. If I drop off mistakenly, you'll probably know that I'm on the floor.
I'll text you. Are you okay? All right. So this is so Lighthouse is written in the language Rust, and so compiling Lighthouse looks a little bit different than compiling Geth. Geth, of course, written in Go.
It does, and it might take a little while. It can take a few minutes to actually compile Lighthouse. So depending on how fast your knock is, we might have to wait a little. But while we wait, we might want to talk about the infrastructure of all those software we're using here. I'm not totally up to pair there on how all of this works, but we have we'll have to use an execution client, in this case Geth, and a consensus client, in this case Lighthouse, to actually run and synchronize this Kintsugi testnet, right? And so the execution client will be the one processing transactions and validating those. And the consensus client will be the one doing the actual consensus logic. So making sure that we are finalized, that we can keep growing on the chain.
And this gives me a chance to talk about client diversity, because if you know me, the things that I like to talk about are like decentralization and client diversity. Those are my obsessions. So, you know, there are, I guess you could technically say 6, but really 4 consensus layer clients. They are Prism, Lighthouse, Nimbus, and Teku. And for probably, and there's actually also 2 more, Lodestar and Grandine, but we really focus on those 4 launch clients. Right now, Prism probably has about 60% of the network and validators. And we're really looking for people to choose to use the other clients, Nimbus, Lighthouse, and Teku. That is one struggle. But on the other side of that, since the design of the beacon chain for the future will be using execution clients like Geth, we also need people to think about diversity in those clients. And that's something that I haven't spent a lot of time with, but I know like Besu and Nethermind are good alternatives to Geth. Even though we're using it today, I think the key is to remember, like, you need to be willing to try different things and not just pick one thing and stick with it because it worked the first time.
And one great thing about the diversity with the merge upgrade is that people will be running like different combinations of all of those clients, which is going to increase diversity even more than all the base clients that we had initially.
Yeah, it's kind of multiplicative.
Yep.
Like for consensus layer clients, and I think about 3 or maybe 4, let's call it 3 execution clients gives you 12 potential combinations.
Yep.
And getting all 12 of those, you know, we could even say somewhere between 12 and maybe 20 different potential combinations means that it gives more opportunity to find bugs and correct them, and less opportunity for failure on the main chain.
And so at this point, we just have to wait for Lighthouse to build. Like I said, it might take a little while still.
I've got a question for you, Remy. So this is an awesome guide you put together. How do you sort of learn what you need to do to put this guide together, and how do you get the information to participate in this new testnet?
That's a good question. I started with the the guide from Paritosh, I believe.
Cool.
So Paritosh and Marius have a guide, but in their guide, it was very focused on like people with a lot of knowledge, with a lot of technical abilities, which is why I decided to write mine, which is more geared toward people who maybe have never run a client before or don't know all the different configuration that they should be using to run the client. So I just wanted to make it easier for people by writing this guide.
Awesome. Very
Yeah,
cool.
I'm very appreciative. A lot of times you look at developer instructions and it'll say, clone these 3 repositories and run them. And you're like, okay. Oh.
And how am I supposed to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like cannot find Go. What does that mean?
Well, one of the issue I had, like I used the Go language that was provided with Ubuntu, right? So I just installed the Go language provided from the Ubuntu package, but that version was too old and it didn't work. So I had to modify all those options, but like those instructions were not detailed in those guys' guide.
Yes, especially for somebody running it for the first time. It's really helpful that you put all these steps together.
I'm curious, how far will we get? Will we actually be getting testnet ETH or are we only monitoring the network?
So in this guide, you'll be able to sync the network, and you'll also be able to get like testnet ETH to use for any kind of transaction. So maybe we'll try to do a transaction next.
Awesome.
Once we all are all in sync, and then we get some from the Faucet.
But am I correct to assume that we won't be launching a validator?
No, will not be. No,
Okay.
I'm still working on adding that part to the guide.
Sure. Yeah. I look forward to it. My biggest excitement is, EthStaker is a pretty formidable community, and I'm hoping we have 100 or 200 participants who are just like, hey, we did the instructions, we can run Kintsugi, and I hope that we get on board and kind of contribute what we have.
How did you learn how to pronounce it? The Kintsugi?
I didn't.
You didn't?
I literally make shit up. Like,
all right, great.
Someone will correct me. It's funny you say that though, because all of the previous testnets like Madasha, like I literally, and this is like over a year ago now, I would like say Madasha 500 times. And even like write notes, MEDASHA, even though it's MEDALLA, just to make sure that I would pronounce it correctly. And now I'm just like, we'll wing it.
I'm sure we could ask those guys. We could ask Paritosh and Marius to tell us.
There's also always like YouTube pronunciation guides for like the locals. Oh, Kintsugi, is this Kintsugi is the pottery. So when you take gold filler into broken pottery, isn't that right? Wait, is that the correct?
I was just looking it up. Kintsugi, yeah, it's
I've heard of that.
Also known as Kintsukori, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery by mending the areas of breakage with gold, silver, or platinum.
And so it's like more valuable after it was broken, which I think is absolutely awesome.
It reminds me of that dish that the chef in Italy did, Massimo Bottura, I think, which is like, oops, I dropped the lemon tart. I don't know if you guys watched the Netflix special, but one day somebody dropped a lemon tart on the floor, like as they were carrying it to a customer. And then the way that it broke was like quite beautiful. And that inspired the chef to actually make the lemon tart dish, not like a perfectly placed lemon tart on a plate,
oh, cool.
but like an upside down.
He would throw it on the floor every time so that
scoop it up with the spoon.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So
Step on
it's cool, like the idea of like embracing brokenness in a sense.
I love that you said that. Like, we can have a little bit of a moment of therapy here to embrace brokenness.
There you go. It's an apt name too, I guess, for the Merge testnet. Like the idea of this is a testnet that has been prepared after previous testnets and glued together with gold.
I kind of hope it lasts. Well, so in a way, you're happy when a testnet fails because you're like, we discovered something that needs to be fixed. And if we didn't discover it now, we might have discovered it later. But on the other hand, like you want a test net to run forever just because it like shows this great success.
So I was looking at a post recently, trying to find it again. I don't remember if it was from the Ethereum Foundation, but they describe all the different testnet that they were planning and like how long they were supposed to last.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was
So
not aware
maybe
of
we
that.
could get a little more insight into how long Kintsugi is going to last there too. But let me try to find it again.
Yeah, it would be great. It's funny. You know, I think in I don't know. Oh, during the launch of the Beacon Chain, I did these videos like I felt like every week. And then the Beacon Chain launched, and I'm like, well, there's no need for it, even though there really is like this need to help install and get clients working. I'm very excited again for the merge to kind of just get back into these show and tell videos. Honestly, Remy, if you hadn't written these great instructions, I wouldn't have felt as comfortable. So I appreciate that.
I'm glad it could help some people.
I wonder, from a formatting perspective, if you might capitalize on that copy button, maybe by separating these and removing the dollar signs.
I think the copy button is actually part of like GitHub. I don't think I can like.
But if you put a like an additional space between the two commands, then I believe it would only copy one.
Oh,
I don't
maybe, yeah, you're right. Maybe, yeah.
And then possibly deleting the dollar sign. I know that's conventional for code, but like
that's what we know. Yeah.
Yeah. Make it
Might make it
easier for
easier for
people
non-technical
to
folks, yeah.
copy and paste. Yeah.
I remember during the EthStaker, one of the EthStaker validator workshops, somebody was running into the issue where it was like dollar sign not found or something. And that's for a non-technical person, it's like, how do you even begin to diagnose that?
I love that. That's one of the reasons I love these videos, because those are the things people like, they can't know. You can't know that's not supposed to be copied. The other one is
remembering your password.
No, I'm in my, so I actually started a new tab, but I'm in my local machine now, not my remote machine. That's why.
I see.
It's you, Fizz, that posted that about the different testnets, right?
I did name them, yeah.
Like you were talking about like the fragile dev testnet, the developer testnet, the public testnets.
And that was really, that's experiential. It's not really like formal, I guess, is what I wanted.
All right, I thought I was formal.
I'm nobody, yeah. So we should have Lighthouse made.
Yep.
I mean, it may be formal from the perspective that I've been through all of this, but I don't believe that's documented anywhere.
All right, I believe you still are missing one step, which is to copy your version of Lighthouse globally, just to make sure it is installed globally.
Sure.
Guys, I'm sorry to have to do this, but I have to drop. But I'm glad I could join you guys for a little bit. Remy,
no worries.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you, Colfax.
Yeah, it's fine.
Excited to see your node on the network.
Take care.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so.
All right, so now you should have Lighthouse installed globally.
Great. And now we're going to. So this Ansible stuff actually confuses the daylights out of me. I tend to get hung up here, but.
So those are the files needed to launch a testnet. So what you're just copying there, and then we're going to be using them later on, are like the definition of what the testnet is.
Yes. And that, I guess, when I was parsing these directions, I just had difficulty interpreting or working with the Ansible. So I'm really glad that you've written this. So what we've done
to
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you please. I'll copy
all right,
paste.
so you just like created some user to run the geth service, and then we're just initializing the geth node with the Genesis file. And now we're gonna actually define the systemd service for geth now.
And I love So this is showing how when you get into Nano, if you don't know how to get out of Nano, it can be a little overwhelming. And so Control X, Control Y. So to paste into Nano, this is kind of a little trick. I think you can do right click paste, but to use the keyboard, it's Control Shift and V.
Yep.
And so I've pasted that. I'm going to hold the control button. I'm going to press X, and then I'm going to let go of Control X, and I'm going to press Y to say yes. And I'm going to write that name with Enter.
Yep.
And
then every time you create a new service in System D, you have to call those commands, daemon reload, and then you have to start the service. And then if you want to make sure your service is actually running, you can call the status command, and then it should write something like active.
You're always looking for that green
running.
text. That's what I always look for.
So if it's not running properly, it'll show in red there.
And great. And now we're going to enable it on reboot.
Yep.
And so for my money, I plan to leave this testnet running as long as Kintsugi is around. Sometimes it's even fun to run it beyond the life of the testnet, just so you can say a year later, yeah, I'm still running that.
So that next command is gonna show you the logs for I believe you missed the nest there. So you can see that your Geth node was started, but it's still looking for peers. And so it'll take a little while before you can find enough peers to start syncing properly.
So I'm new to CCZE. What is the -A flag?
I believe that's for accepting raw log files.
Okay.
But I can't remember. That's a new command for me as well.
I'm just curious. I don't. Oh, hey, you nailed it. Raw ANSI.
Yep.
Awesome. I think I will use that much more frequently. All right. Oh, and sorry. So I just viewed the help for CCZE because it's something I'm not familiar with. That's nothing that anyone needs to do as part of the instructions. So we created a service for Geth, and that means that Geth is now going to run every time the system boots. And now we're going to do the same thing for Lighthouse.
Yep.
As a merge client, your system will need to run both services, ETH1, or what we call execution, and ETH2, which is consensus. And now I'm setting up consensus.
And this guide is focused on using Geth plus Lighthouse, but you could also run a bunch of different execution clients or consensus clients to run on the Kintsugi testnet.
Yeah, and that's the thing we learned. EthStaker learned a big lesson when we were when we were getting the community onboarded with the beacon chain, that we used Prism a lot, and Prism was doing a lot. And it kind of shot us in the foot because people are like, I learned with Prism, so I can only use Prism.
Yeah.
We want you to know this is just an example, and we hope that we intend to use other services, and we hope that you also branch out and try the same thing with Nimbus, try the same thing with Besu.
Absolutely. If you have the skills, you should try to use different clients there.
Even beyond that, like create your own video, do one better than we did.
Yep.
Showing something a little more obscure, because we're not trying to be everything. We're just trying to help jumpstart the community. So we enabled this on boot, and now we're going to watch the output.
And so now you should have a consensus client running with your execution client. And eventually you'll be able to get in sync. Now you'll see a few warning log message there saying that your ETH1 node there, Lighthouse has not updated their log messages there to use the new convention with the execution and consensus layer. But they'll say like you're currently syncing your ETH1 node, and then it'll be too far behind to sync the consensus layer. So you'll see the error, the endpoint error log there far behind. It's just because that your Geth node is not in sync yet.
So I'm going to ask, that's what I thought. I wanted to ask a really naive question, and I see evidence of it now. This is an entirely new beacon chain testnet. This is not going to be based on something like Prater. And Prater has been around for several months. It's based on an entirely new beacon chain, and you can see that as we begin to sync, we're only a day behind right now. So it's about a day and 4 hours old.
Yeah.
So when we sync, we're going to be synced up pretty quickly. But as weeks go by, say if you do this 6 months from now, and for somehow we're still running this testnet, you're going to see this timer start back at 6 months, and it's going to slowly come to the current time.
Yeah, I believe that the testnet was started yesterday, if my memory is correct.
It looks well, whatever 1 day 4 hours ago was. Awesome. Is this so
eventually you should see logs that look like what you see in the screenshot there on the guide, right? So once you're synced, you should be able to see those logs, and it shouldn't take too long for you to get in sync, right? You'd already see that you're like 18 hours behind. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and set up Metamask on this account while we're waiting for that. I always love doing this live because there's going to be like a new seed phrase. Sorry, what am I doing wrong here? Oh, it's already there. Oh, what the heck is this? Hold on, let me think for a moment. Oh, it's because it's my local instance. That's why I'm confused.
Like if you don't want to use your personal wallets, which you should not, right? You should also always use like a new wallet in MetaMask. Maybe you could use like a different browser or a different profile in your browser.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let me think of what I have. So I'm going to pause the recording while I hop into that and then hop back to the screen. Nope. Okay, back to recording. I should have. Nope, I lost.
I believe you might have to reinstall the extension.
Yes, right? Yeah, I'll have to reinstall MetaMask, but I wanted to get back to those instructions, and I know they're a little bit. I know they're close to reddit.com/r/EthStaker near that pinned post. And there we go. And now I'm going to install MetaMask. I surprised myself with seeing a profile there. I was like, I didn't expect that. Because I'm in a virtual machine that I didn't think I had used. Let's see.
That's also like a good demonstration of how to install it.
Yeah, that's what I figured. It can't hurt people to see how to install MetaMask. And one of the things that's always confuses people is the pinning. It's not hooking me up here, but usually I have to pin it for people or help them pin it. Okay, so MetaMask is installed. I did a naughty thing by skipping the seed phrase confirmation, but there's no. It's really not wise to do that in a demo. In the real world, you really want to make sure that seed phrase is backed up well.
Yep.
All right. So what do we got?
And like I mentioned, I believe,
we're caught up.
Yeah, you just caught up on the beacon chain there. You can see the info synced message, which is what you should be looking for to make sure that your consensus client is in sync. And I believe you might also be in sync on your Geth node as well, on your execution client. Because I don't see those warning messages anymore. Yep, I believe you are correct there too. Yeah, so it didn't take long, right? But like you said, the network just started yesterday. So if you were to do this like in a few months or even in a few weeks, it might take a little longer.
And really depending hours, it shouldn't take more than hours for the life of this chain.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to add, I'm actually gonna, let's get this out so I can have the instructions next to. One of the things about MetaMask, if you try to do everything in this window, you're gonna find out like it closes on you and it can be really annoying. The way to get around that is to click on this 3 pancake menu and hit expand view, and it'll give it to you in a full page. It's not going to shut every time you try to do something new.
Good tip there.
So what do we got here? We're just switching Rothstein. Oh,
maybe the new MetaMask does not show a bunch of those test network by default, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I had to turn it on. I turned on show test networks.
You don't need to switch to Robson first, but maybe that'll help you. Who knows?
Okay.
All right. So the first step would be to actually figure out what's your machine IP, like the one on which you installed all those clients.
Okay.
So,
this is on the local network.
Yeah. So if it's on your local network, like one of the instructions there I wrote was to type IP address in your your console.
Just gonna make sure I'm on the right machine here because
and so you'll find out that the IP address of that machine is 192.168.6.14.
Great.
So you'll need that IP to configure MetaMask.
Okay. Now what?
And so the next step would just be to click on that drop down there, the network selector, and then click on add network. And so for the network name, you'll simply enter Kintsugi. For the chain ID, you'll have to enter the chain ID, which is a little further down the guide.
Oh, look at that. It's leaked.
Yes, it is.
1337702. Okay.
And then for the RPC URL, you'll have to enter HTTP colon / and then your machine IP. And then it's column. What's the port? I believe you'll find out a little.
Oh, okay.
On the guide there, it's 8545. Yeah. And then just click save, and it should work. There you go. Kintsugi was successfully added in MetaMask. Yeah.
Great.
So the next step would be to request some funds from the Faucet, so you can get free ETH. Actually, like it's not real ETH, but
speak for yourself.
It's some ETH that you'll be able to use to try the network and perform some transactions.
So I'm definitely gonna regret saying this. This is a great POAP distribution vector.
It is. Do we have a POAP? Oh, so I've been talking with Perintosh and about this issue with the Faucet. So he told me that sometimes there's transactions that are queued in the Faucet and they block anyone else from doing additional transactions instead of like having an internal queue. And so it gives that error, and there's like nothing much you can do there. You'll have to wait until that other transaction is waiting. So
should I continue to try?
I mean, you could try like every few minutes, but like
okay.
Right now it might just not work.
Should we pause this until it works?
We could, yeah.
Okay. Okay, it was just a few minutes later, and we got that Faucet to drip. I now have 50 ETH. Yes.
You're rich.
Now I need to be a validator. But because we're not ready to deploy a validator yet, and we're on a test net, really the most that we can do is demonstrate sending this between 2 Kintsugi wallets. Is that right?
Yeah, you could like create a new account in MetaMask and then just like send some value between those 2 accounts if you want.
And so the benefit of this exercise simply being that I sent a merged Ethereum transaction. This will actually be the first time I've sent a merged transaction, so it's kind of neat.
It's like an end-to-end like test to confirm that, like, hey, we have this merge testnet which actually can process transactions.
And so right now we're monitoring both blocks. We have MetaMask installed. The next big goal, which will hopefully be a video for us maybe in the next week or two, will be launching a validator. And do we think that's within grasp?
1 week should be long enough for us to make sure we have some good guides to set up a validator.
And I didn't say that to pressure you. I'm saying like it would be neat if this happens.
Yep. And so that you can see that your transaction went through MetaMask, but you can also confirm this through the transaction explorer. So if you go back to the guide, you'll see there's performing a simple transaction. You can check the transaction explorer. And then if you copy your wallet address, you'll be able to search, I believe.
And you know, it's funny. I bet I can do this manually because oh, maybe not. Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah, maybe you'll find out your transaction.
The network is small enough that it should go manually. Oh, maybe not. Okay. So
you can search there, yeah.
I transacted one transaction. There it is. Out from here into the new address.
There you go.
Very cool. All right.
And I believe if you click on like the first part of the first transaction block, like the link, you might be able to get a little more details. Yeah, there you go. So you can see like your fees, your gas limit, and everything about that transaction there.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks for your time.
No
the
problem.
next step, of course, hoping to get a validator set up on this network and let this thing run. I've got 50 or well, I do have technically 50 Kintsugi ETH.
Minus the gas fees.
Yeah. All right, Remy, thanks again for your time. I love the guide that you wrote. That's very helpful.
Thanks.
And I appreciate all that you do.
Yep. Thanks to you.
All right. Take care.
Take care.